Thank you very much, Lisa. So let's get started. Just want to take a quick look at some data that we gathered. So following the last election, we held a debrief that was well participated in. And then we also sent out a survey that Lisa put together to gather even more information. And Lisa has painstakingly put that into visual aids for us. And I think some of the data, and it's not, I mean, it's just a portion of what we collected, but there are some things here that I think would be pertinent to what we're going to discuss today and give you an idea of what your fellow ridings are doing, what tools they have at their disposal. This will help the panelists as well to see the same. So I just going to pull a couple of the slides up. No, sorry. Are you guys seeing a Word document, or are you seeing the graph? No, okay. Yeah, it's not. Sorry, folks. Okay, I can see it, so I'm hoping you can see it. Okay, so we asked people, we separated just like we will in the sections that are going to come up between NDP tools and non-NDP tools, because we know we use a mix of both. But here's the NDP tools that people had. So you'll see most people are using Populous, but not all. Quite a few people dipped into Dandelion. We won't talk about that a lot here. I mean, if we have space at the end, that'd be a great time for anybody who used it to chime in. But you'll see what folks were using. The website, Call Hub was highly used, you know, half of the campaigns used Call Hub, and Mobilize, which is a set of online tools that the NDP has. Here's the non-party organizing tools. So quite a few people, obviously, during a COVID election were using Zoom like we are now. Bob will tell us that there are alternatives to that out there. Maps from Elections Canada was also highly used. So Bradley will be happy to hear that. And he's one of our panelists. He'll explain how you can better use those maps. Mailchimp, again, we're going to have folks talking about database. That's a database that ridings are using, and that's encouraging. There's a lot of folks that are spreading beyond the tools that are supposed to be available.
Quick note, do you make it like full screen for folks on mobile?
Yeah. A little better.
If you hit escape and then hit press your escape button on the top left of your keyboard.
No, I did. It just didn't work.
Oh.
We'll make these slides available to people as well. You know, we're going to issue a report. So I apologize if you're not kind of getting large enough graphics to really see it, but I'll describe it as best as I can. Almost everybody is using Facebook, and Instagram is up there, as well as Twitter. YouTube was utilized during the election, and TikTok. We know our head office uses TikTok quite a lot, and so does 35% of the people who responded. So people were really jumping into that. And we'll see that 35% of people used paid advertising during it as well. So another one that we had was around messaging that we thought would be interesting work for you guys to do in between elections, is to think about local messaging. Sorry, it's hard to operate between there we go. So a lot of you wished there was more flexibility in that, and there is. You can do that year round, right? There's no platform to follow. So I highly encourage folks to start creating their own messaging there. And just to give you an idea of the size of some of the campaigns that we just came off of, 40% of them were under between 1 and 10 people. So a lot of the tools that we're going to introduce to you, you'll be able to use with very small teams. You get bigger teams, And by all means, the growth could be exponential. It's very encouraging to see 21% of campaigns had over 31 people. So that was to just give you an idea of, what's out there and the data that we were collecting. It helps us kind of build the tools that we'll need. Sorry, my computer's not enjoying all of these. My rural internet doesn't appreciate all these tabs jumping back and forth. So I'm going to go first in the presentation. And what I'm going to do is basically start you at the beginning, is data collection. Now, you spent the campaign going door to door, calling folks. I don't know how you all collected the data, but there's different places that we can now go and get that information and use it to help grow your writings. So it wasn't just to get out the vote. That data is going to be very useful to you moving forward. So again, I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully there's just not much of a drag as last time, but there we go. Okay, so there's some key places that you can go. Obviously, Populous. I'll give you a bit of more of a rundown on exactly how you can pull. Not exactly, it won't be a how-to. We will have training for Populous throughout, but it's full of information. So, and that data is shared and compiled from Central as well. So it's anything you put in and what they have compiled along with the Elections Canada voting database, the electors list. And you can generate all kinds of reports from there. I'll go into that a little bit more next. Agnes was a new tool that was available to us at this election, and it was a volunteer management database. So if you didn't have access to it then, there's still information on there that you can get. What Agnes had preloaded was any possible volunteers that head office had identified. It was preloaded with that, and anybody who went onto your website through the NDP website and found your riding, found your candidate, and then clicked on, I want to help or I want to volunteer. Their name was put into Agnes. So I'm not sure if you guys got emails when those people signed up, if you weren't accessing Agnes, but if you can get into it now, it will still have that information. Call Hub is another source of information. Now, if you set that up yourself, you'll have to go in there and print the reports, all the responses that your callers spent time getting, whether they're marks or updated phone numbers, depending on what criteria you built into the script, you can go into Call Hub and print that report. Now, if you were lucky enough that Party Central set up Call Hub for you so that it was tied to your Populous, a lot of that data would have been transferred over your Populous, but not all fields were. So it's still worth going in and making sure that you print those reports, pull that information. And I don't have it in my notes, but I'm thinking of it now. It's important that all of this information goes somewhere central. It should be protected, obviously. Most of this is voter lists, but in order to create sustainability in your writing, you don't want just one person having this on their home computer and nobody else has a means to access it. That's when we have high turnover and things are lost. So think of ways that you guys can share information as well. Folks might touch on that later. But Zoom is also a place where we data mine a little bit. You'll notice you had to register for this meeting. So I got your email, I can ask for your phone number or what riding you're in. You can create custom questions there. So even if you didn't collect that information, because I see a lot of folks did use Zoom. So if you go back to your registration reports in the account settings, you can see a list of the registrants and any answers that they gave to those questions that you set up. And then obviously there are lots of other sources as well. Like I've worked on campaigns where you might have just a pile of little pieces of paper with marks on them. The point is to gather all that data then no matter where it is. Other places you might think perhaps a smaller campaign just manually made a sign list. I mean, you had to pick them up. So even if you weren't getting them from Centrals, there's probably a shared Google sheet or some volunteer has a list of where all your signs were. That's data you can use. Petitions that you had filled out, membership lists that you would have received going into a nomination meeting if you had one, and most did not. But you would have received a membership list. So even if all of these programs are completely foreign to you, there's still places that you should have or hopefully collected some information during the campaign. But Populous really is like the bread and butter in terms of where most of the data ends up, because Call Hub is tied to it, Dandelion was tied to it, Central collects information year round and it goes into it. So you can print a whole lot of reports from there. But the key point I want to make to you before you go into Populous is know the purpose behind the report you're printing. What are you going to use it for? Are you going to load it into Call Hub? So it'll help determine the report types that you see listed there. And that's not exhaustive, but you can load up Call Hub reports. Here's a list of the kind of reports that there are. This contact export list that you see highlighted in the yellow is the most versatile list. You can really custom build it, and it's all the contact information for whatever parameters that you set. There's also a report that's specifically designed for Call Hub so that you can load that up and start doing phone banking. So you're going to want to know why you're making the list before you start to make it. They're not all going to give you the information you need otherwise. I find the best way is to look at the description in the report to get an idea of what you're going to end up with. The title doesn't really help, and neither does the category, but reading the description will help you determine what report is best. And then here's all the different search, obviously not all the different search criteria, but you can custom make the reports at a Populous right down to a single poll. So in the top left-hand side, you'll see existing criteria. The NDP has actually loaded up some quick stuff for you, like your top 100 callable supporters, quick, fast. You know, a couple of volunteers can plow through that list really quickly. Your donors list is there, sort of. People who donated to you, not people who donated to the party. They won't be listed there, but Bradley has something to tell you about that. And all the signs that were requested during your campaign are quickly referenced there. Your tier A phone. So when you see tier A in Populous, that is headquarters. The folks in Ottawa figure out an algorithm. I'm not really all techie there, but they try to determine who your most likely supporters are, and they're tier A, and it goes, there's a few of them, goes down to tier D. It's not entirely accurate, but it gives you a starting place. And then you'll see there's custom criteria that you can fine tune. The one example I've given you here is the marks. Pull all my 1s and 2s from the last 2 elections. So you see the campaign. You can add right up to 2011 usually is available. Marks is, you know, supporters. You know, a 1 is a supporter, 2 is a kind of a supporter. And then you can see at the bottom criteria, I've even added a poll. So give me all my 1s in poll X. Like you can make it very broad or very narrow. So I spent a little more time on Populous here because it's just the biggest source of information. But you'll see in the last column here, the dark blue, the conservative blue, we have limitations on data. So like the kind of downer here is Populous is notoriously inaccurate because it's built through registered voters. Not everybody votes. Not everybody asks for confirmation when we're canvassing. So if your data kind of sucks when you pull it, you know, a lot of phone numbers are out of service, no emails attached to them. Keep that in mind when you're training your canvassers, when you're building your scripts and whatnot. Know where your gaps in the data lie so that you can start to pull that information, right? Tell your canvassers, if you get a 1 or a 2 at the door, get that poll sheet up, confirm it on Dandelion. Is that their phone number? Can you maybe get their email address? So the better you get at canvassing, the more you do it, the better this data is going to be as you go through it. So you have all this data. Really, it's a whole bunch of spreadsheets. That's what you end up with, a whole bunch of spreadsheets in a folder somewhere. Great. Sounds kind of boring, except for people who really like to analyze data, right? I know you're out there. But practically, you can load this data right into phone banks and start calling people for issues. Just to, you know, here, the second point is say thank you. Call your donors, thank them. Call your volunteers, check in with them. How are they doing? We'll talk about retaining volunteers near the end, but get feedback from them. Start building a sign list. Go through your old sign list. Thank you for taking a sign. Will you take one next time? Will you take one for the provincial election? then before your campaign even starts, you know where you've already can place, X amount of signs, you're ready to go. As long as you have a candidate when the writ drops. Boom. And then just grow your team, right? You can go through all your super enthusiastic ones that people found out, right? When people mark, yeah, we've got a great supporter here, you should have that information. Go back to them, maintain contact with them. Maybe they want to get involved. Maybe they want to donate. I didn't put up that on there, but. And then there's tons of other ways that you can obviously use these contacts because they are your base, right? A place to start. So that's what I have in terms of how you can collect data. And I know it was kind of a bit more how to than I normally give, but this stuff will be available to you after the meeting as well. So you don't have to worry about remembering all of that. Now, does anybody have any questions specifically related to collecting data? Because folks are going to talk about what else you can do with that information and all kinds of other things, but specifically to what I just ran through there. No, that's good. I mean, either none of this was news to you, or I was just so thorough that you have no questions, but that's great. So next up, Tim is going to, these were all mostly NDP sanctioned tools, so to speak. Tim is going to talk about a few other tools that ridings can use to thrive, right? Tim, if you want to just take a couple seconds to tell people who you are and then get right into it. Thank you. And don't forget to unmute there.
I can't do it. Oh, I got it. Great. Thank you. Perfect. Thanks. You can hear me. So all right. Thanks. Got it. Now that I've demonstrated my tech knowledge, let me get into this. So thanks, Jessa. So just a bit about who I am. My name's Tim. My pronouns are he, him. I'm the president for now of Etobicoke Lakeshore NDP for the last 5 years and for another month and a half. And I work at Lead Now as my day job, and also I'm a DJ, but that's less relevant right now. But I do a lot of data work and a lot of automation work. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is some of the ways that you can make your work easier, which I like to do because there's a lot to do if we're going to build a movement. So talk about some of the things you can automate. There's a lot. You could automate Twitter to retweet the NDP's posts every time they post for you, things like that. But I'm going to talk specifically about automating some of the data as it pertains to email. And the reason for that is because email has been the cornerstone of our growth in Etobicoke Lakeshore. It is the cornerstone of effective movements that mobilize people. We've seen Bernie do this. Lead Now does this. Good email work goes a long way. And that's because organizing is dialogue. There's lots of ways to dialogue, but email has the best cost-benefit ratio. It's easy, it's free, largely. You can get a lot of people at once, and you get a pretty good response rate. Organizing is relationship building, right? The thing is that it is impossible for the average human to maintain more than about 150 relationships in their mental map. So data is the solution to that, or more accurately, good data that is well organized is the solution to that. There's two primary universes of data with whom the average riding association is concerned. The first, and by far the larger, is the voter contact universe. All the voters, every voter in your riding. The dream, of course, is to talk to all of them all the time. But ridings are big. There's a lot of people. The NDP uses Populous for voter contact database. Populous has a lot of great utility. Doesn't have what I would consider an amazing interface. Doesn't connect readily to other platforms without some tricky work. It isn't easy all the time to extract or input data. There's no real automation flows, but it is good at what it does in terms of holding on to the large amounts of data that a campaign generates about vote intention, sign requests, that sort of thing, all of which is extremely valuable after the election. As Jessa just talked about, it's really important to follow up with those folks afterwards. Those are exactly the people that you want to escalate into that second universe of people, which is your active supporters. not necessarily active volunteers, but people who are in your orbit as an organization and in active dialogue with you. They are the people who are your primary resource for activation during a campaign, but crucially, they are also your best advocates outside of campaign. Exactly the people that you want to keep engaged and active between elections. It's outside the scope of this discussion, but there is a third group of data that you might want to keep track of, and that is organizations in your riding. But I'm going to talk about that today. What I have found is that very successful riding associations do use Populous, but they tend to also use another data management platform for handling that second universe, those supporters. Some use Nation Builder, some use Action Network, quite a few use Mailchimp. I'm going to talk about Mailchimp because that's my top recommendation. Action Network is also great. Nation Builder is great, very capable, a lot more expensive, and I find it a little clunkier. So Mailchimp is a third-party application. It looks like quite a few of you are used to it already. And it has become much more than an email service. It is an email service, which is great. You can send out emails, you can make a nice template, jazz it up. That's important, that's nice, but it does a lot more than that. And where you can generate some savings on time for you is that it has landing pages that you can use to collect emails in your campaigns outside of elections. And I say the word campaign intentionally. A lot of the way that we in Etobicoke Lakeshore have gathered strength through the years and between elections is by campaigning on issues between elections. And they can be very local. We do campaigns on, expanding climate action, things like that, a little broader in scope, but we also do campaigns for very local, very specific issues. For example, we've done a campaign on removing a concrete factory down the street. We've campaigned on repealing the ban on pit bulls in Ontario. We campaign on issues that are topical to our community. Sometimes we actively solicit that information from our membership. What kinds of issues do you care about? We ask them in surveys, and then we create petitions around those things. Sometimes topics hit in the news and we see, aha, that's going to be a top issue. We're going to campaign on it. There's a lot of value behind that in terms of creating visibility for the organization and connecting with new people. But on the automation front, what we do is we create a petition page online. And that petition page asks people to show their support and indicates they're going to get email from us about the topic. And they put in their email address. We have that email. It goes right into our email database and it's tagged appropriately. So we know this person has come in on this date. We know they've come in on a particular issue. And it's automatically put into our email database. And now what we do is we send out a follow-up email after we've campaigned for a week or two on an issue, specifically to people with that tag, which again, this is now automatic. We just say, yep, anyone with that tag gets this email. And that means that the first contact they get from us is about something we know they care about. It's not a fundraiser. It's not 10 fundraisers. And it's very topical to what they're doing. And that shows value. And it shows that we value what they care about, which helps us to build a relationship. And we'll do that for a couple times with that tag. And then we'll bring them into the more general conversation that we have via email. One thing that's nice about Mailchimp now too is they have added it up, or they added a feature where now you can build a website entirely in Mailchimp. I haven't used that yet. It's fairly new, but I'm given to understand that you can. It's similar to what we do use, which is Weebly, or people use Wix, those sorts of things, to hold a website. Now you can do it all in Mailchimp. By having these tags in place, we can get a sense of who we have connected to our email, what they care about, all at a glance. And that allows us to, during a campaign, target our messaging. We can campaign on climate change. And when there's a climate debate, ask people to donate so we can run ads on the climate debate. And we send that to our climate segment. Having all that information stored in your Mailchimp allows you to have a conversation that feels and is more personal to the people that you get involved with. I'm going to talk about one other piece of automation But before I do that, I will note that if that sounds like a lot to keep track of, it can be. So one thing that I always advise, and I should have made some nice slides like Jessa. I'm not very visually oriented, so I'm sorry about that. But I always advise having what I call a tag tree. And a tag tree is just a spreadsheet that has all of the tags that you are using actively for tracking your data. And it's just says like categorize the tags, like all of the topics that you're using, and then list out those different tags and then exactly what they're used for. And that way there's not a lot of duplication. And I find that if you don't have that source of reference, then people will guess what kind of topic a tag is about, and they may create their own, and the data gets messy very quickly. So you do want to have a source of reference for how you're using this data. The last thing I want to talk about as far as automation is something called Zapier. And so Zapier is it's a tool built to automate things for you and to connect different applications across the internet. And it connect basically all of them. Pretty much any application you've used online, Zapier can integrate with. And it's fantastic for allowing you to create workflows that you don't have to think about anymore, that it just handles for you. And as an example, I'll use one that we do at Lead Now. We have a Slack space. Thanks for sharing the link, appreciate that. We have a Slack space in Lead Now for our volunteers. And when people sign up to volunteer with us, what happens is they go into our database, and then Zapier sees that they have filled out the form, the little form, and you can connect it to any form, Mailchimp, Google Sheets, any of that. It sees that they've connected the form. It looks at the record that is created in our database for the postal code they've entered. It puts them into Slack in a channel for their riding based on the postal code they entered. So I don't have to go and manually invite them to a particular channel. I don't have to go and manually invite them to Slack at all. They get an email automatically that says, welcome to Slack, click here. And they get put right into that channel with other activists in their area that they can begin talking to right away. And our volunteers are notified at the same time that there's a new person in that channel that they can go greet. And if they don't click the link to join Slack, Zapier looks a week later, checks the timestamp, and then says, hey, see you haven't joined Slack yet. Do you need some tech support? And we'll help you out. All of that is automated. And if it wasn't, that would be my full-time job, just managing all of those interactions. So we're basically getting a full-time employee out of this automation. Really powerful stuff. And Zapier does have a modest cost, but it's pretty low. It's quite within reach for the average riding association, even lower resource ones like Etobicoke Lake Shore used to be. Is there a screen you can show? I'm afraid, Marco, I don't have screen share set up, but I'm happy. I'll close out by saying that if you are on a riding executive or a progressive campaign, you have any questions or would like demonstrations about any of this stuff one-on-one or for your team, I'm happy to do it. Give me a shout, president@elndp.com. I'll throw it in the chat. Give me a shout, happy to do that and take you through some of the things we've done or answer any questions. And that's that. I do wish I had slides. I'm very bad at slides. I'm good at tech. I'm not good at slides. I'm sorry. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have about automations like that. I don't know if you have time here for me to do it now, answer some questions, or if you want me to just offer it to folks afterwards. Up to you, Jessa.
If we could take a couple quick questions, if anybody has any, for sure. There was, Kamal had a question. I kind of answered it, but if you want to elaborate, can you manage the list in terms of do not contact?
Definitely. Yeah, that's great, Kamal. So that's what the tags are for. So in that example, if someone wants to stay a member but no longer wants volunteer emails, you could create a tag that says no volunteer. And then just when you're cutting your lists, just exclude that tag from any volunteer emails. And so that way, no one who's on that exclusion will get them in depth, but I'm happy to go through that some other time. Are there good practices? Yeah. Other info between elections for actual elections. Can you, sorry, I'm not sure I follow that. Can you ask that question, Marco?
I'm wondering, Marco's talking about, we can grab emails from Populous, but they aren't subscribers.
So anyone, so this is what I do. Anyone who is subscribed to the NDP's email list goes into Populous, and you can export that and just put it right into your Mailchimp. I think what you're asking is, are there good practices for taking, like, if we run a campaign like I described on the concrete plant, what do we do with that information during the election? How do we convert those folks? And the way that we, like, the practice that we use is that because we're engaging those folks in dialogue, we show that they're active. We typically do policy surveys out to everyone every 6 months or so to keep them active, keep them feeling like they are involved in our work. And then we use that information where they express their policy preferences, the things that matter to them, along with the data we've gathered from the petitions, to target our messaging during the election when we begin to activate people. And we'll do like volunteer recruitment that will go to different policy areas. So if it's climate people, we'll focus on a climate message, say, like, we have the best plan on climate. We'd love for you to get involved. Here's the next canvas. And if it's, you know, like the concrete plant, say, like, we want to make this green space, this area. A lot of groups are working to do that. And the provincial government has a lot of say over that. So we want to get you involved to ensure that we have a provincial government that will not sell that to a developer, but will instead give us the green space. So targeting that message to convert people into volunteers and show them how their expressed interests connect to the candidacy of our campaign. Hope that answered the question.
Yeah, Marco,
Thanks, Tim.
There you go.
Cool.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Jessa. It did mostly. I just wanted to add on, like, when you have all that Populous info for your, you know, second universe that you want to focus on, and you have the Mailchimp info, it, like, should you be using both tools, or should you try to consolidate it into one, like, just in terms of not duplicating effort? That's part of the question as well that I wanted to see if you had insights into.
Makes total sense. Yeah, I will take anyone who signs up through the NDP into Populous as a volunteer, export that before an election, and throw it into Mailchimp. I just do periodic exports anyway into our Mailchimp. I don't go the other direction for a few reasons, but yeah, you do want to have that. One of the reasons I like Mailchimp as opposed to using Populous for that second universe is that we don't control the portal by which people sign up to volunteer with the NDP for Populous. And so I can't put a form on my website that says, like, volunteer with the NDP and have it go right to Populous. As far as I'm aware, maybe they're changing that. But so by having, but I want to be able to do that. Like, we run our own website, we have our own information. I want to be able to be recruiting people as volunteers and know that I'll be able to follow up with them in a timely fashion. So we have our website with those sign up forms, and we manage that, and we get notified as soon as someone signs up. It goes right into our Mailchimp. We follow up with them within, you know, like within a few days, and set up a meeting and bring people in that way. I don't have the ability to do that with Populous. If I did, maybe I would consider using Populous alone, but we don't. So so that's why the differential.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Thanks.
Yeah, no worries.
Thanks for the question, Marco. Just another note, Populous is only the people that geographically live within your riding. You can't build beyond that. And you know, people from outside the riding always help your campaign, or, you know, stay in touch. Another thing is, any emails you collect that you put into Populous will get 10 emails a day, unless you maybe put the do not contact in on Populous, but then you can always email them through Mailchimp, just saying. So thank you so much, Tim. I was frantically making notes, so maybe we can touch base and I can get some notes for you to upload to the handout, but that was very valuable.
Glad to help. Thanks.
Thank you.
Cheers.
So Bradley's up next. Bradley's going to talk about Elections Canada data that's available, and a little bit more. So Bradley, if you could just introduce yourself quickly and get right into what you've got to teach us.
Absolutely. My name's Bradley White. I'm the former two-term president of Peterborough Kawartha. I was the chief fundraiser for the Sean Conway campaign in 2018. We nearly won Peterborough. I was the campaign manager in 2019 in Mississauga Malton. And I was also one of the fundraisers and general helps for the 2021 election just recently. And I'm going to talk about everybody's favorite topic in the NDP, money, in particular fundraising. Just a little bit so I can get a sense of the room. Just unmute yourself and or hands up and say who likes fundraising and who hates it. And that's pretty much everybody. So I'm going to talk about what I call the Northumberland System. There is a golden opportunity right under your nose, but it's not. You have to know what you're looking at, and somebody has to tell you. But once you realize how it works, it's exceedingly powerful. So this is the big. I'm going to start with that. All fundraising, indeed all riding level political interaction, is a form of sales. And I define sales as whenever you have a voluntary behavior or voluntary choice and you permit a persuasion, you have sales. Now, it doesn't mean we have to be unethical, doesn't mean we have to be excessive, but it means we do use the proven techniques from sales. And one of the biggest techniques that you can use, and the ones we don't use anywhere near enough in the New Democratic Party, is pre-qualifying your sales prospects. What I mean is that sorting down a list of 40,000 people into a list of 400 people that you know are likely to say yes to you. Our tier system, in particular our tier A's, are part of a pre-qualifying system, and I'm very happy to have that system on hand. But I'm talking particularly about donations. It's a little lacking for reasons I will discuss later. But what I have done is, and if you go on the Elections Canada website and you go on the disclosure section, and it's been posted right now, every year there is a report posted there that says what the NDP earned in that year, federally and centrally, and all donors who donated more than $200 must be listed on there with their name, their city that they live in, and the postal code. That is under the Canada Elections Act. That is the law of Canada. Now, that's exceedingly powerful, because what it means is that if I can get it out and I can sort it out, I can get a list of people who I know are donating in your riding right now. And I would like to know how much that money is. And I would like to know where it's going, federally or centrally, or is it going to the riding, or what? And I have done this for about 10 years. I'm just going to open something up here. Okay. Sorry, just open up the screen share here. So I have produced a list of every riding in the country, sorted out by postal code and what NDP donors live there. And I'm going to show it to you right now.
Do you have share screen ability there, Bradley?
Yep, just one moment.
I just put it in the chat, but I'm just going to talk until I get to screen up there. We don't get a list of people that donate directly to central office. I just want to reiterate that list. So even in Populous, where donors
It's
are
not-
tagged,
I'm on a phone and it's being a bit slow. If you could just put it up in there, that's just the federal central list with all the individual donors.
from what you shared with me earlier.
Yeah. We'll just go this way. I knew this would happen. So this is the federal central list. And this is where I want to be a bit clear about what we're going to do here. And this is, again, when we talk about sales. This is what I call, in sales, we have what's called cross-selling. Cross-selling is where a customer is interested in item A, and you think they might be interested in item B. And this federal central list is an excellent source of cross-selling, because all of these people on this list are no New Democrats and like to donate. As a riding, I always say our key, yep, there's the list. And if you scroll down at the end, that's a $5 million list. And that's every single donor over $200 and how much they donated in the party. Sorry, that's the riding list, not the Project Ultra. This is the, it says the one that says donor donation activity by donor.
Are you able
Yep,
to?
that's it.
Thank you.
That's a $5 million list. So that's everybody's first name, last name, postal code, city of residence, how much they donated. So if anybody ever wanted to know where the gold is, this is where it is. This is actually a sample of about 3 different presentations I give. So this is the first part. The second part, and I want to know, and I'd like to say is this is where it gets a bit counterintuitive, but bear with me. And you have to understand that Central has an automated call bank and a call center, and they call all of these people and they ask them for money. Sorry, a question. This is NDP donors. Can we get them for other parties? Yes, you certainly can. I have a file that automatically sorts out by riding, by postal code, and I will do that for you. It's a lot easier for me with that automated tool than it is for you. So, and if you go on to the activity by riding, this is actually the third one. Jessa? So,
Yep, sorry.
activity by riding. This is a list of each riding in the country and how much they donate, they yield to the federal central party every year. Ottawa, if you go down to Ottawa Center, they're number 1. They have $197,000. Spadina, yep. Actually, you can't get the link. I just email me, uswptboinfo@gmail.com. I will send you this list because I have to process it to break it out by riding to get it to you. It's in a bulk form on Elections Canada that's not actually useful for what we want it to do. Yep, Mike's got it.
I can send this to everybody as part of the tools that we send out to
Yeah,
everybody who
send this
registers.
out. Yep. And then, so that tells you what each riding yields. And it gives you a really good idea of who you are. And speaking of, just getting back to my second part, which is cross-selling. When somebody donates $400 to the central party, that is a sign. That's a little dot appears above their head that they are interested in being a New Democrat. And it's a crying shame that we as a riding don't know about that. Because that is a person that I want to talk to. because that's a person that I would like to put a sign on their lawn. That's a person I want to invite to the nomination meeting. And that's a person that I would like to ask to volunteer. And maybe I will get a donation from them. But I'm going to talk about this later. It's not an us versus them thing. It's a we thing. Ridings and the Central Party are not substitutes for each other. We are not direct competitors. So the fact that 200 and 100, as I put it, if somebody gives $200 to the Central Party and then turns around and gives $50 to the local campaign, under no circumstance does that mean that they were going to give $250 to the Central Party, because we're different. And as a riding, our strength is relationships. Our strength is providing personal experiences, and most of those experiences do not involve asking for money, but they make people feel happy, they make people feel connected, and they make people feel valued, and they want to come back. And that's how you get long-term volunteers. And that's why when we work together this way, both the Central Party and the ridings can work together in a mutually cooperative way. I have a whole presentation on this with Mike Blesky. He's in the audience. We call this Project Ultra. Project Ultra is a proposal to put the NDP on a fully funded basis. Yep, sorry, just one moment. That we would basically be able to spend the limit each election. Federally, it will take 60,000 people. And we have 9,000 on this list right here. I'd like to talk more about this. That's a little later. Number two, I'm just going to have to speed up a bit. For the provincial disclosures, we don't get postal codes. That's not legally required in Ontario. What we do is we simply we compare the donor disclosure list to your membership list, because the Ontario NDP turns all donors into members automatically. So again, that is not a secret. And just to pivot back, this is the Project Ultra list. This is a goal I would like to talk about more in depth, but if we sign up approximately 15% of our Tier A on a PAC system, we will have a fully funded party and we will never want for money again. I have a whole presentation on this and I'd like to talk more about it. Just going back just to wind up, just to pivot a little bit, I see that 50% of all campaigns used Elections Canada maps. When I was in Mississauga Malton, I got them. When I was the campaign manager, I got them 2 weeks before the election. It was pretty useless. I turned around and I said, I need them months before. I need them to have New Democratic information on them. Wouldn't it be great if we could just have them on a shelf and get all the partisan information right pre-filled in to use in an election planning committee? And that's what I did. If you could just put up the first one, the York Simcoe map, Jessa. I have a whole map system. It's called the New Democratic Political Atlas. It's ready to go. This is York Simcoe with all the surrounding ridings. It's got First Nations reserves, cities, towns, highways, streets, everything. If you go to the second map, this is Leeds Grenville. This is Leeds Grenville with the polling data, or if not, it should be. And number 3, yep, Peterborough Kawartha. That is our 2018 results for the New Democrats in Peterborough, based on an average NDP poll. As you can see, we came very close. That was the closest we come in a number of decades, actually. And This is available for the entire province. My proposal, which if any, to combine these things, I put at least 6 months to a year of work into this map system. I'd like to turn it over to ridings. I'd like to I have a proposal that I can release all the maps for Ontario, the entire province, all 124 ridings. We can fundraise approximately $10,000. I'd like to talk more. I can talk more about that later, but that would mean that every riding gets all of these maps down to the pole level, because we have individual pole and city maps as well, right before the 2022 election. I would like to release it by January. And I have found that ridings and local campaigns in particular are more receptive to this. And if anybody asks, if anybody notices, I just told you that there is a list of $4 million afloat out there. If you go on that list and find the donors in your ridings, you can ask them about this and use those leads to fund this. I think it's an excellent system. I also think it's an excellent way to practice reaching out to our supporters and showing them what we want to do locally and for our neighboring ridings, and to practice what we should be doing anyway all the time. So I think that's about it. Any questions? And please be aware, there's about three hours worth of presentations in here. I've skimmed over a lot.
I think Bradley would probably get you back to the general meeting on the 30th to show this to folks as well.
Yep.
If you're available.
I am.
Good. So yeah, you got some thumbs up and applause, some very positive comments. We were able to use some of these tools in the campaigns that I worked on this election. They helped pinpoint where you could target your resources if you were very tight on that, or at least be able to fine tune your messaging, knowing whether you're going into a neighborhood that you have performed well, or one that you have not. So yeah, Jennifer, I see you have a question. That's amazing. I'm just gonna ask you to unmute yourself, and then you should be able to, there you go.
Yeah, Jennifer Stairs, the Executive Director of the New Brunswick NDP, 2 weeks on the job, came right off the federal election. So, and Bradley, really,
Jennifer?
Pardon, sorry?
I'm from New Brunswick.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, no, I was living in England until 2020. So I was involved with Jeremy Corbyn and Momentum over there and moved back to New Brunswick, where I originally was born. So yes, new executive director down here. You talked at the end about Ontario. Does that mean that this is just something for Ontario, Bradley? Or
no, I have the entire country.
Excellent. I just wanted that just as a point of clarity. And cheers, thank you.
It's just because that's the next big election around, at least for around here.
Okay.
But just to be clear as to why I did that, when I did this, it is easy when you download these files because I should say Statistics Canada and Elections Canada, if you dig on their website, they have what's called the National Geographic Model. All of their data is designed to work together. They have an integrated system to every spreadsheet, every file, every drawing is supposed to comes from the same place and has the same index. You can put it back together and put your own new democratic spin on it. Some assembly required. As I said, it took about a year's worth of assembly. I have it done. It's ready to go.
Don't worry, Bradley, I will be contacting you. So I just don't want to take up too much more time, but I just wanted to make sure that I could use this down in New Brunswick, and I will be contacting you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Oh no, Mike's not stepping out of line. He's great. Bob Chandler. Sorry, Bob.
Yeah, just say, okay. Yeah, just, you can hear me okay?
I certainly can.
I have a flaky microphone here. I'm just a comment. I'm also aware of another person near Ottawa or in Ottawa, in one of the ridings in Ottawa, who has been kind of doing some similar work to the work that you've been doing. So it would be kind of cool, I think, to plug the two of you together, because I know that in Scarborough Southwest, she had generated some heat maps that I made some use of to help out with their Get Out the Vote efforts in Scarborough Southwest. So it's sometimes different groups of people are working on the same thing simultaneously and don't necessarily know about each other.
Oh, please, I completely agree. And what I realized when I first did this model, it is easier for the and it is easier to do all the work now and to before the election than to do it right before the election and run around in a frenzy. All of these maps don't, sorry, one moment here. Sorry, all of these maps don't have any, they can be generated years in advance. They have permanent data on them. It's not policy that's going to change very quickly. All it is results. Once we've done, and so there's no reason we should not generate it now and take advantage of it in planning, and just put it off and put it on the shelf and take it off.
Yeah. My only comment is sometimes people are working on the same thing, and it would be.
I would love to have a collaborator.
Yeah. So this other individual I was in touch with because I was helping her with some other stuff, and she developed sort of a web application that was generating heat maps and stuff like that. So I think you're working in a similar area. So it would be really cool to put you guys together, so that because you could probably do some amazing things together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Perfect.
I love making connections. So I'm going to have to cut the questions for Bradley there. But like I said, we're going to bring him back for the general meeting on the 30th. And I'm sure, I don't know, Bradley, if you want to put an email in the chat. Mike has graciously offered his email for anybody that's looking to get in touch as well. So
please. I will.
Okay. Thank you, Bradley. Thank you very much. So we have another presenter that I'm excited about here. Matt is with us from Smoke and Felt, and he is going to talk about how your riding can use social media to expand and go from here. So Matt, are you with us?
I sure am. Good evening, everybody. Great to be here. Thank you, Jessa, for that lovely introduction. And thanks to all of the presenters who have already gone. Some really, really great insights. I know I learned a few things that I did not know, and I hope everyone has as well. So I'm here to give a little bit more detail and background on how you can use different social media tools in order to help enhance your presence online and hopefully move those folks through your funnel from just, those original touch points into being more active and engaged. I have prepared a few slides to share with you all. So if you'll bear with me for one moment, I'm going to try and do a screen share here and pull them up for you. Can folks see that okay?
We can, yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I'll zip through this pretty quick. I realize we're coming to the end of the evening here, but as has been mentioned previously, I will be sharing these assets with Jessa so that she can then distribute them to everybody on the call here. And of course, I'm happy to follow up with anybody directly should they have any questions or comments or concerns afterward. So social media strategies, how we can build and continue to build connections in order to engage with the community. Before I get into the details, just want to provide a brief overview of the things I want to cover. First of all, who Smoke and Felt is and what we're all about. I realize that some of you might have met with me before or spoken with me before, but I see a lot of new faces that I have not personally been introduced with before tonight. And so I want to give a brief overview of what we're all about. And then from there, diving into some specifics about what I like to refer to as the 3 C's of social media, followed by 5 high-level strategies that you can start to think about implementing within your own day-to-day operations within your riding in order to help grow your community and grow your connections. And then from there, just a couple of tools that I like to use. You know, we've already talked about a few like Mailchimp and Populous and so on, that I hope will help you connect the threads between the various data sources that you already use, some of the third-party applications you already use, and how you can bring those things closer together with the social networks that you are already using to reach out and engage with people on a daily basis. So who am I? What am I all about? What is Smoke and Felt all about? Put simply, Smoke and Felt is a creative communications firm founded to build progressive politics. We have been working for a number of years now across the board at the local, national, and international levels. We've worked with NDP candidates and campaigns. We've worked with progressive institutions. We've worked with labor organizations, and we've worked with nonprofits for a variety of sectors. And it's all about, and for us, it's all about trying to drive those progressive causes and that awareness wherever we can lend help on the creative and the communications side. And we offer a full suite of tools, of applications, and of understanding in order to help drive those concerns. So we provide creative design, whether that be print or digital for folks. We offer campaign management on social web, as well as media relations, working with press and so on. And then to give you better tools and understanding to help you take away and work with your own teams and your own ridings, we offer training and consulting as well. And that's done through our education arm, which is called Smoke and Felt Academy. So between these 3 things, Smoke and Felt is set up in order to help really drive home across a variety of media, progressive understanding, progressive messages, and ultimately elevate that into movements in their own communities. These are just a handful of folks and institutions that we've worked with in the past. We've worked with Nikki Ashton, we've worked with CUPE, we've worked with Canadian Labour Congress. Somebody mentioned just a moment ago, Jeremy Corbyn. We worked with him and his team with a larger organization called Progressive International last spring, the Toronto York Region Labour Council, and a number of other folks. So from coast to coast to coast and beyond, Smoke and Felt has been working for a number of years now in order to help drive these various methods, or excuse me, these various messages and movements through our work. Now, enough about that. That's who we are. Let's talk about social media and various strategies that we can use in order to help fill out what it is you're trying to do on a daily basis. I mean, it goes without saying at this point that the various social tools that are at our disposal, whether they're more established networks like Facebook and Twitter, which have been around for quite some time, very robust, have a number of both free and paid methods in which you can reach people, as well as new and growing ones like TikTok, for instance, that target a smaller demographic with a different media type, or entirely new ones like Discord, where they are, they started out under different circumstances, but since COVID-19, we've seen them explode in popularity. All of these different tools make it incredibly easy to allow you to connect with your audience, drive the outreach, fundraise more effectively, and earn more subscribers for your list. The trouble is how you go about dividing that work, figuring out the strategic approach for each one of those channels, and working it day in, day out in order to build up that momentum. Of course, this could be something that entire teams spend all day doing. And, Tim touched on that a little bit with his talk on autonomous tools, where, you're replacing a full-time job with automation. These are things that we can also work to use social media to work and engage with on a regular basis in order to further our goals. Now we get to what I like to call the 3 C's of what social media is really, really good for, regardless of the particular channel in mind that you've chosen, whether that's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Discord, whatever. In any event, we want to focus on these 3 items at their core: credibility, consistency, and community, and moving folks from one to the other in order to help strengthen those bonds, strengthen that engagement, and ultimately get folks to respond when you call them to action in whatever regard. That could be a fundraiser, that could be an add your name to a petition, that could be coming out to an event, whatever the case may be. So the first one, the credibility, using these social media tools, building your network in order to establish and reinforce your credibility, your authoritative voice on the issues at large. And that can happen on a daily, even hourly basis. You know, we heard mentioned earlier today that there might be a news item that crops up that we want to, that a riding wants to jump on and make a part of their campaign, or something that they want to, by contrast, avoid as part of their campaign. These are things, as using social media in order to avoid or deploy these things allows you to establish your credibility in the space. And that can be within the riding, or can be within a niche level or a more general level, depending on how you want to go about it. The next one is consistency. So using these tools and the, you know, in some cases, the automation and the data that goes along with it, in order to consistently layer on your message and doing it in a frequent way, in a consistent way, over and over again, reaching people wherever they might be at the right time with that message. And then ultimately, as you continue to do these things through Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Discord, whatever, what you're ultimately doing is helping to build a stronger sense of community in these virtual spaces, so that your supporters continue to grow, those connections continue to exist, not just between the official account and individuals, but between those individuals as well, making the entire community more sticky. And then once that happens, you're able to then move them and motivate them to specific calls to action. So working these 3 C's, considering them, keeping them in mind as you go about developing your content and your broader strategy, will ultimately yield a more effective result and a more desired result. And you can see how this ultimately, how people ultimately move through this chain of events. So building your credible message online through these different tools in order to demonstrate that authoritative voice, and then consistently deploying that authoritative voice across a number of issues using a variety of tools and networks that you've been building up this whole time. And then as you do that, that community slowly starts to develop more and more bonds through that reinforcement in order to drive more conversation, drive more meaningful interaction, and create that broader sense of security there. Now, as you continue to do that, and don't get me wrong, it does take work, it takes time, it takes planning, it takes effort. As you continue to do that, you're going to start to see familiar faces crop up, similar people joining additional events, joining more events. New Demo Chat is a great example of that. How, you know, we all kind of found our way here through one method or another, whether it was a positive interaction or a negative interaction. And now before you know it, we've got 50 people on a phone call on a Friday, or excuse me, on a Saturday night. This group is in and of itself an example of how these tools can work to build that broader sense of community and drive folks, motivate folks to a broader call to action. So what you need to do when you take that away into your own writing or to your own example is figure out how these principles can apply to your location on the ground with whatever it is that you currently got in play. And that can be in a pre-campaign phase or a post-campaign phase, and how you want to keep that momentum alive. And social tools are obviously a great low way to do, or low effort way to do that, depending on the circumstances. So with those 3 C's in mind and what those look like, I want to talk very briefly about 5 broad social strategies that you can then use in order to pave the shortest pathway for people to join that community. And those little bits of content, whether it's a video clip, a tweet, a post, a event space, whatever it might be, those individual things, while on their own might not be much, but in aggregate, they help light up a pathway that leads people to find your community and join it and become a part of that bigger message, that bigger movement. So here are 5 that I've put together right now. And these are by no means a be-all, end-all. They are just part of a broader communication, a broader conversation that each individual riding can take depending on the strategies they want to promote and the goals that they have in between as well as during election cycles. But these are 5 that I think yield great results and things that you can, more importantly, implement with a pretty low standard of effort in order to help make things easy as possible for people to connect. The first one is build what I like to call a holistic subscription engine. And in order to do that, what that means is you allow people very, very simple, very easy ways for them to subscribe to newsletters, to follow you online in various social channels, to interact with you and engage, so that all of the different methods and media that you use all serve to reinforce one another. So that can be, tweeting out a link to your Mailchimp subscription landing page. And when they subscribe to your landing page, they get an automatic email that welcomes them and connects them to your Discord, for instance, right? Keeping folks in the loop, keeping them engaged, and allowing them to further deepen their connections with you on all the other channels and platforms. The next one is promoting opt-ins during virtual events. So an event like this one, think there's been no shortage of folks who have exchanged or traded emails and other contact information, deepening those connections as well. And that could be on a one-to-one level, or it can be a one-to-many level, following the new Demo Chat main account, for instance, right? If you haven't already, things of that nature. Third one, offering bonus content or virtual access to followers. This is great for additional media outside of just the standard posts or texts. So Discord is a great example of this, where what started out as channels and message boards that were very, very specific, they have since added the ability to have audio stages where you can have promoted events and so on through audio right within the community, within the platform. That's really, really powerful. In the same way, Twitter has now instituted its Spaces feature, which allows for audio conversations to be joined and shared amongst the network, which is also really, really exciting and used to great effect for various political campaigns. So I would encourage folks to take a look at those and see how those can be factored into whatever broader campaign strategy or approach you're looking at doing. Next one, integrate social channels into campaign media and cross-promote them. This is something that I find happens quite a bit. Does not happen quite a bit, and I don't really understand why, which is that social channels and the various methods that people engage with online are not as tightly integrated within other campaign materials as they could be. And that could be something as simpler as including a QR code on a leaflet, something of that nature, and designing an experience or a connection online that works from an offline product. I would encourage folks to think about how you can bring these two worlds closer together and how one can continue to reinforce the other. And the last one, using social advertising to grow reach beyond a bubble. This is very, very effective if you happen to have some money in the bank that you're able to spend on platforms like Facebook and Instagram or Twitter or TikTok, where having even just a little bit of money in order to target and promote your campaign or your geographic area or a certain demographic really lets you expand your base and bring followers in or potential followers in who may not otherwise be seeing your message due to algorithmic restrictions and the like. So I really would encourage folks to take a look at these as perhaps a starting point for other social strategies that you might want to include. And these are some specific apps and tools that I've identified. We've chatted about them in various capacities already tonight from some of the other presenters that can help you along this way. And more importantly, almost all of these things work or play nice with the data sets that you probably already have at your disposal. What's great is that most of them are free or very, very low paid as well, which certainly helps. So for instance, Facebook Creator Studio and Twitter Media Studio, these are free tools that are built right within the actual apps themselves, predominantly available through desktop, but some do have mobile apps as well, that allow you to plan, post, schedule, engage, and analyze your various campaigns on those social platforms. So Facebook includes both Facebook, the Blue app, as well as Instagram, as well as any paid advertising campaigns you might be running on those platforms, And Twitter Media Studio includes Twitter itself, scheduling tweets and posts, as well as Periscope for live video events, and any of the Twitter advertising media you might choose to take advantage of. For more robust social scheduling, planning, and analyzing, I would recommend you look at a third-party tool like Buffer or Hootsuite. These are tools that do offer either free trials or free tiers with limited feature sets, which you can absolutely use to get by on. Or if you're planning on doing a lot of social planning and content promoting, you might want to look at one of their paid plans as well. But this is definitely a time-saving tool, depending on your strategic approach to social media. And they, of course, have complementary mobile apps as well to allow you to run your campaigns on the go. For developing the creative assets themselves, not everybody is a graphic designer, not everybody has access to pro tools like Adobe Creative Cloud and so on. And for oftentimes a lot of that is overkill for what you're looking to do. And so recommending something like Canva, I'm sure many folks are already familiar with that, web app, is great for developing social graphics that are in tune and branded with what your campaign is doing and what you want to post on various channels very, very quickly. And Canva has actually iterated on its core product quite a bit in the last little while, so that rather than having to download your creative materials and then reschedule them to Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, the social channels and the planning are integrated right within the app now. So you can develop a post for Twitter, and you can schedule that post without ever leaving Canva, which is super, super powerful. And then next, everyone's favorite email client, Mailchimp. Mailchimp is great, integrates with your website relatively easily, does great backend management for your data with the tagging and the journey building along the way for those automated conversations. And it allows you to plug in nicely with your social tools as well in two ways. One, you can obviously use your email list in order to grow your subscribers through your various social channels. But Mailchimp does something super interesting, which is that it will also help crawl and find your subscribers' social information as well, if they use similar demographic information like their email address. And that can allow you to better target folks with a paid campaign or to find them online through your own social channels, which is super helpful. And then, as I mentioned, Discord or Slack, if you prefer that, is great for taking a broken up or a fragmented audience across all of these different social spaces, and then collapsing them under one roof where they can continue to engage with your campaign as well as engage with each other, much like New Demo Chat does already. And that is great not only for keeping things kind of centralized, but it really helps strengthen the virtual bonds that people are developing across that community, realizing that they are not, alone, or that it's a one-to-one conversation with the riding New Demo or NDP campaign only. So that is something that is really, really exciting, and that sector in particular is really taken off over the last little while as well. I think what's most important, though, is that I want to emphasize that there is no one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to these different campaigns and these different channels. Different ridings will have a different scope of work, and they find that different things work out better for different people. So I would encourage folks to continue to play around and work with these various tools to see what really connects with the people they are talking to, and emphasize those things over another. Not everybody is going to be able to do everything. There just simply isn't enough aren't enough hours in the day. And so really kind of, taking a hyper-focused approach, considering what your end goals are, will really, really help out with getting the most out of your time spent on these different channels. And they're fun as well, which also helps. So that's just a quick overview of some different things that you can do in order to help kind of build this out a little more as we move forward. And of course, there's a lot more that we can talk about and jump into. Unfortunately, in the interest of time, we won't for the time being. But I encourage you to look at this further. We will certainly share this slide deck with folks so that you can catch up on it at your own time. And of course, Smokenfeld and myself are always available in order to continue the conversation. So please connect with us. Here are our socials as well on the most popular networks. including LinkedIn, everybody's favorite social network. And I will be more than happy to continue the conversation as well. I would also encourage folks to visit smokeandfelt.com. And if you're there and you click on Smoke and Felt Academy, we have a number of free resources that are available for download. Just click whichever you prefer. And there are more coming online every single week. We also recently launched a new tool for folks like yourselves who are looking to build out their skill sets, build out their resources, called the Whip. And that is a free weekly newsletter that highlights and sends you these new resources as they come online, in addition to news and updates that you might have missed during the week from a progressive perspective. So I would encourage you to check all that out at smokeandfelt.com. And that is it for my slides. So I will turn it back over to Jessa. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Matt. I just want to see if anybody has any questions for Matt before we go into our final section. That's short, but important. But if anybody has any questions for Matt, I've dropped the website in the chat, but again, you'll get all these slides, and which includes the socials for Smoke and Felt. Thank you, Matt, for doing that work above and beyond too, coming here to help build the grassroots of the left. Drew has a question though. So Drew, just going to ask you to unmute, and then you should be able to.
Hello. So right now I am in the process of becoming the possible NDP candidate for Lanark Frontenac Kingston, which is a very rural riding with a lot of support issues, I would say, but it's going to be one that is watched pretty closely in the provincial election next year because of the fact that Randy Hillier is still planning to run as an independent candidate. So when it comes to creating my format, I guess, social strategy with that, what is my best way to kind of like build a kind of like team slash build a like plan moving forward?
I'm sorry, I just had a little bit of static there. Did you ask what is your best way to build a team moving forward to develop your approach?
Yeah, for sure.
This is certainly something that that folks do tend to struggle with depending on the scenario. I think what I would not start with a team approach first. What I would start with, or recommend you start with rather, is an outcomes-based approach first. And by doing that, you would, necessarily take a look at where you would want to put your best efforts, and then from there, developing or finding team members that would help you find the best path forward in that regard. So when it comes to a scenario like that, and I'm happy to speak with you directly afterwards or later on to talk more about the specifics of the case. When it comes to something like that, I would take a look at the resources that you have available at your disposal, and where you want to put your efforts, and then finding a way to counter whatever it is that he might do in order to then from there develop your team, develop your approach to different channels, and ultimately leading you down a pathway that will lead the best result in victory, really. So if you want to shoot me an email later on after today or tomorrow, I'm very happy to continue that conversation and help you out.
For sure. Thanks, Matt. I appreciate it.
You're very, very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, and good luck, Drew, if you do end up being the candidate. So I don't see any other hands, but Matt has put his email there in the chat for folks, so that we can. Just going to go on to the last section, and I aim to kind of have you guys out of here. It was 5:30 was my goal, but I mean, this is a lot of information for folks, so we stayed on a little bit longer. You should be off of here by 5:40. I'm just going to run through our last section, which really is you're going to start engaging people and building your team. And what do you do with these folks, right? How do you keep the volunteers that came out, the people that came out? So we have the data, we've got the emails, our social media, but human beings connected with you during this campaign. And, right now they're probably not hearing from you. Maybe a few of you have already contacted them, but I'm just going to kind of walk through a few things that you should be doing with. I don't have slides for this one, so you just got to look at me. First, thank them. We did kind of touch on that. You should have their contact information, whether you send out a card or an email, or ideally actually phone them. That would be a way to make sure that they feel valued, that you remember them and that you appreciated what they did. Learn from them, get feedback. So Lisa, I always say, like, I feel like everything we create, Lisa created a volunteer debrief survey, specifically for people who worked on your campaign to provide feedback on that experience. I did have the link for that form. I'll come back to it. Or Lisa, I don't know if you could find it and perhaps drop it in the link there. But get feedback from your volunteers. They have very valuable information on how well you did handling, intaking them, keeping them informed, keeping them engaged, interested, and having fun, right? So learn from them. Let that be, invite them to your debrief if you haven't already had one, right? And that you should be having one as a campaign to talk about what worked and what didn't work, and invite volunteers. It's not a secret, right? You should trust them. They've already put in the work, right? They came to you, they did the work, so you can now trust them. That's how I operate anyway. You should always trust volunteers. Don't have inner circles, outer circles. I would pull them right into your executive meetings. You don't have to, but that's just my suggestion. Thank you, Lisa, for dropping the links. I don't have to worry about that. And I mean, really listen when they give you feedback. So utilize their feedback. Don't try to excuse it away. You know, if that was their experience, that was their genuine experience, and you need to make some changes perhaps. Also, when you're getting their feedback, find out what they were interested in. Why did they join their campaign? That'll help you point them in a direction within that writing. Whether it's an empty spot on your executive, or perhaps you could create working groups and committees. A lot of writings are very good at keeping year-round engagement, or cycle round engagement, because they have working committees working on issues, the way Tim described how you would onboard people specific to climate change, and then make sure they're working on climate change so they feel that personal connection, and then they know they've been heard. You might onboard somebody that's very passionate about an issue your writing has never considered fighting for or advocating for, and now you can, right? So really listen to their feedback and make sure it forms how you get them involved. Let them determine what their role is going to be, not just be like, sweet, we need a CFO. Are you down? Like, make sure you're really kind of taking their feedback in, and then teach them, right? So they may have learned some tools during the campaign, maybe not, maybe they felt like they were really kind of just struggling. So now you have lots of time. Don't wait. Teach them Populous. If you are an administrator on Populous, if you're a president or you're a table officer, you can add all volunteers. You can set the parameters on what they can access, but teach them Populous. Plug them into New Gemma Chat. You don't have to be an executive, and we provide training all the time. Make sure they know how to use the phone banks, everything, because then they're gaining tools simply by being involved. Tools that you can use in other activities, right? Other modes of activism, because most of our membership are community engaged members, right? We are mostly activists, and so they appreciate gaining these skills and gaining these tools. They might teach you some new tools, especially if you onboard the younger ones. They'll show you. So make sure you let them know that they're valuable, and they have stuff to teach you as well. So it's a circular kind of relationship that you have to build with these new volunteers. No, don't gatekeep. New volunteers are just as valuable as ones that have been around 25 years, sometimes more so. They're not burnt out yet. They have fresh ideas, and they can see where your problems lie as soon as they walk in. They can feel it, right? So please, it is a huge problem with our writings where new folks feel like they're kind of not in the loop, and just be mindful of that. We all do it to a degree, so just keep it out of your writing, See, this is why slides are helpful. For the training, one of the notes, the Ontario NDP does a particularly good job of providing a lot of the free training to the tools that they use. So Call Hub training, Populous, there's a few other ones, canvassing, even role specific CFO training, volunteer coordinator training. Make sure when you're getting those emails, if you're not getting your provincial, your federal, organizing emails, get on them and share them with everyone on your team, not just your executive, not just you. That's not just for you. Disseminate those trainings to the entire volunteer squad, because you have no idea who's going to uptake, and you're just kind of spreading all this education. So if you're in Ontario, I know we're a bit of Ontario centric here in New Demochat. That's just how we were founded. I don't know how other provincial parties are doing to this degree, but make sure that is something that is flowing through to all of the people involved. And then community engagement. We didn't get to talk a lot about this, but Tim did touch on. Find organization. So a lot of these people that came into your campaign probably work in the community somewhere. They're probably part of another group that you could build a relationship with. You don't always have to fly your banner when you go into these community engagements, whether they be mutual aid, amplifying work that's being done, helping. You don't always have to go with the NDP flyer and your logo everywhere, because a lot of these groups are not partisan. They don't want to appear partisan, but your members can be involved in that work. You can spread the ideas, these progressive, you can change the narrative, you can be a part of it. And then you are, especially people who want to be candidates, you are present in the community always, in the places that matter, right? In the places that we need to draw from, where excited folks will come out for the campaign next time. So allow the new volunteers that have come into your campaign lead you to the other work that's already being done in your community that you might not already know about. Okay, so those are just a few tips that I kind of wrote down. I feel like we could do a whole session on community engagement. That's something that ridings always want to do more of, but we seem to get stuck in an election cycle because, I mean, here in York Simcoe, we had 3 federal elections in 3 years. So I don't even know what it's like to not be in an election cycle at this point. And now we've got Ford's fight, but it is crucial so that we don't just come around to our community when we need their vote, when we need their money, that we've done the work. Right. So moving forward, almost everything that we've talked about today will go in further depth. New Demochat commits to helping CFOs. I don't know if any are on the call. We did not touch on that at all because it's not really part of growth. So we'll help CFOs get through filing their returns and doing what they do. We will provide populist training on top of what perhaps the party will do so that it's just more accessible. All kinds of things, the free Jitsi training. So please consider plugging into New Demochat for these purposes. And also consider providing your services the way the panelists have today. So we are completely, like, we don't raise funds. We are completely run on volunteer power, everything. And so if you have any knowledge to give, we need it. Trust me. So if you're on the Slack and you're on the Discord and there's something you know a lot about, say, I can hold a session on this and I will move around you, right? I will invite the people, we will make it happen. But come to us if you have knowledge to share. It's important, right? Because that's how you got what you got today. Because those folks, that's exactly what they've done. Matt came forward to share his skills. Tim is always doing that. And Bradley is just constantly doing work behind the scenes to better the party. And so I'm going to forget who wrote it in the chat, but, you know, like, let's pool resources. This is what this is, right? This is exactly our goal. So thank you all so much for coming. A lot of you gave input on top of the panelists, and that is just amazing. Some of you made connections that are going to go beyond here. That is great too. I am going to follow up. Everybody who registered for this email will receive as many of the resources that I can pull together from folks. I've already got some of them set, but I'm going to kind of grab some more because Tim had some gold that we're going to have to put in there. And you'll all get this. You can send it out to your ridings, your neighboring ridings. So again, thank you very much for coming. I know maybe there's a lot of questions. I don't have time to go to any, but again, I will say it again. Go on the Slack, go on the Discord. There are people there that can answer your questions when you're struggling. Okay, so above and beyond this, I really appreciate all of you folks. You are a sense of community for us, and you have a great evening. Okay. Ciao, everyone.